Just to kick off, I wanted to ask a quick question. How many of y'all in the room are owners? Okay. How many of y'all are marketers? Okay. And how many of y'all are the marketers as an owner? Okay, cool. Okay. Nice. Always like to know. Well, I'm excited to have you here today. We worked out something really cool, and I'm going to talk to you about how we came to this conclusion and some of the impacts of the work we do. So I'm Joe Toscano. I'm the CEO and founder of Service Stories. And before I get too deep, can everybody hear me, or should I pick up the mic? Mic? Okay. Okay. There we go. Okay, can you hear better now? Yeah. All right. Cool. Today what we're going to talk about is AI search and what it means for your business. But before I get too deep into it, I want to tell a little story about how I got to this. Because I'm not an automotive industry expert like a lot of guys who've been on stage. I'm actually a technology guy. I used to work out at Google, and I built a career as a software designer and developer. At one point when I was 26 years old, I was working on Google AdWords, and my boss looked at me and said, you know that sign up now button? He said, if you mess the conversion rate up on that by 0.05%, that's $20 million a month. So I learned really quickly how to convert people and why it's so important to do that, right? But not shortly after, I actually ended up leaving Google because I had concerns about the way the internet was treating our data and the impact it was making in the future, what AI was going to do. And I wrote a book called Automating Humanity. It was about the fact that we are trying to automate everything that is human, but that we can still make it good. And that led me onto a world tour, creating laws, educating people about AI, and making it so that this was usable for us for a long time to come. That got me into a film called The Social Dilemma, which you may or may not have heard of, but it's the most watched technology documentary Netflix ever seen. And I think the reason that happened was in part because I handed them my book, which you saw over here. I wrote that book for my friends and family back home in Nebraska. Right? If I talk tech to you, you're just going to roll your eyes back and fall asleep. But I wrote this book full of artwork and infographics. I tried to make things simple. And I said, if you guys want this thing to hit with people, you need to do the same. So I think the story that they told, the way it was articulated, really is what connected with people and why it took off. And I'm hoping that today, when we go through this, I've also made it simple for you, but I have definitely held time. If you have a question at the end, please ask me all you want. Now, the reason I'm here, actually, is because while I was doing all of this, my parents, who own Gateway Auto in Omaha, Nebraska, decided that I, their oldest son, was finally qualified enough to do their marketing. And that's what I did. I plugged in 2020, and we grew over 4 years from $3 to $11 million in revenue. And a lot of it was simply systematizing, plugging in Tekmetric, and doing a great job with the web presence and SEO. Wasn't a huge expense on advertising, and there's ways you can get around that, which I'm hoping through today I can teach you a little bit more. But I always knew that search was going to change because I was helping build it when I was in Silicon Valley. You know, like forever, people have, and still to this day, type in auto repair near me, or what do I do about this certain issue, right? But historically, it was always these what are called short tail keywords, not long phrases, very keyword packed. That's always the goal, right? That's what your SEO person says, that's what your advertiser wants you to do. But the fact of the matter is, if you're doing that, you know that these are now getting very expensive to own, very difficult to own also if you're trying to do it organically. Now, where the internet is moving is a world where we are speaking to machines. People are literally picking up their phone the same as you're sending a voice text. They're talking to ChatGPT, they're talking to Google, saying, why is my Toyota Camry blowing hot air when it's set to 62? They don't know. And if you tried searching this, what you're going to find is a bunch of forum posts from people on Reddit or somewhere that's not professional. They're going to read that, they're going to come to you, and they're going to think that they're the expert because they read it on Reddit. And we all know how big of a pain in the ass that is, right? But what is happening is that the way people find you is changing. And research is showing that those who are not adapting are starting to lose web traffic, and it may only get worse over time. So that's what I'm here to talk to you about. Today, I'm going to give you a little brief history of the internet and how SEO works and why it's evolving. We're going to talk about the behavioral change in search and how consumers now find you or will find you. We're going to give you a case study of a client of ours so you can actually see what it looks like to put this together. Whether you do it on your own or you decide to work with us, doesn't matter to me. But I'm going to show you what it can look like. And then I'm going to end with how can you be ready? And you may see that little graphic down there in the bottom right. I put little icons on certain pages I think are valuable for you to take back to your team. So just keep an eye out for those. And hopefully those are good for you to take back. But let's start with SEO history. All right? In the early mid-90s, when the internet was just becoming consumer friendly, you could just post something on the internet, you'd probably be the only thing on there, right? Nobody really cared at the time. It wasn't the big vehicle it is today. By the late 90s, Google came to life. They started PageRank. Their mission was, and still is today, to organize the world's information. And I'll talk more about that and what I learned while I was there along the way. Early 2000s, we got in the world of internet spam. People were just putting up content because they figured out if I put this keyword 100 times across this page, Google's going to think I'm the thing. And they're going to come find me. And they're going to push me to the top. Well, that lasted for a period, but then Google said, now our customers, our internet users, are getting bad information. It's all fake. It's all spammy. The links are purchased. There's no real authority to find because people were trying to hack it. So they launched these different efforts. Panda, Penguin, Hummingbird, which were all changes to their algorithm to try to enforce quality content on the internet. And then the biggest paradigm shift, there's argument about other ones that you can talk about, but one of the biggest paradigm shifts was when we went from a world where most people were searching on a desktop computer to a world where people were searching on their phone. And at that point, Google said, if your website's not friendly on a phone, you're going to start to rank worse. You may or may not have gone through that experience, but it was significant in the way it changed the way we build websites. And I bring that one up, I think it's very important because that is what I believe is happening today with AI. All of you today have a website, if it's going through Tekmetric or wherever it is, I'm sure it's optimized for mobile. But there's a new phase coming, which is optimizing for AI. And I believe over the next 2 or 3 years, if you're not preparing and adapting and investing, you're going to see the same thing we saw when we changed from laptop, desktop to mobile. Now, beyond that, they also started to push more updates. They want you to be an expert. They want higher quality content. Their goal is to organize the world's information, and our job, what they would tell us, is to make sure people are getting the information that they need in the moment that they need it. When you type into a search bar and it predicts what you're going to say, it's not a guess, right? They know because of the way you traffic the internet, the way you move, and the things you look up, and the things that you buy, and all this data pushed all over the world. It's not that they're listening. They have access to things that they don't. They buy it. Data is their parts, right? But the more expert you can become, the more likely they're going to source you because so many people are writing just spam, especially with the onset of AI. Some of you may have tried to use ChatGPT or Claude or something, and it's a good start, but I'm sure you saw how quickly it gets off the rails and it hallucinates, and if you publish that stuff, you will get penalized. And if you do it at a large scale, you just get penalized more. The thing that they're doing now, though, is they're working to make it so that you're penalized, period, maybe semi or fully permanent. It's not like the old days where you clean it up. They're really looking for people who are damaging their reputation as a search engine, and they don't want that. They don't want it for their reputation, and they don't want it because actually they need better data as a company to train AI. So they're really trying to penalize fake stuff right now, just to give you that. But the era we're headed into, you saw I said ChatGPT, talking to phones, all this, that's just the beginning. You're going to see a world where people are talking to their cars. We're already talking to all these devices on our countertops. Maybe people yelling at their fridge. I'm not one of those, but I know it's out there, right? Okay? So what does that mean for the way people search and behavioral change? Well, let me take you some top-level marketing tips here. If you're in marketing, you're going to snooze, but otherwise, there's 3 real conversion points in the funnel. Top level, you got the awareness phase. stage where maybe they're looking like benefits to getting a tune-up, or they're how to save money on car repairs. They're actually not sure what they need, but they're trying to figure it out. Most of these people, they're not buying, they're not converting at this stage, right? But they're digging. Next is the research stage. This is maybe they realize they got a problem. They're going to start to dig into it deeper. Maybe they're going to try to find who's good. Maybe they're going to try to find what questions they should be asking you when they show up. These are much more likely to convert. And then bottom of funnel, you get to the decision stage. This is where they're going to try to find you today. Whether they've been doing the research and they want to purchase now, or they're in an emergency and they want to purchase now. These are the kind of keywords and phrases that when they're finding you this way, you're probably going to get a purchase real quick, right? So let's actually make that come to life. What does that look like? In the search era, when someone types, "Why is my AC blowing?" they're in that discovery phase, the awareness phase. They're trying to figure it out. And they might go pull up all these different blogs, right? Different places. Go search around. And we're going to call this day one, right? In the patterns of your customers, maybe they have AC problem, but it's not that bad, and it got kind of hot that day, so they went and looked it up, right? Next is their research phase. They said the awareness stage, they're like, yeah, it's not that hot, I'm going to go back to it. Then another hot day hits. Now they're looking again. They're like, oh, maybe I am ready to spend that money. Maybe I'm ready to get it fixed, right? And then, another week later, whatever it is, they're going and searching for your shop. They're going to talk to your technicians, call in, maybe get an inspection, maybe shop around. Maybe they're going to book online, whatever you've got set up. There's all sorts of ways in nowadays, right? But these are the places where they convert, okay? The difference, though, like I said, is how they're searching. Historically, we'd go for these short and long tail keywords. And like I said, these are the things that you now pay $2, $5, $20 a click to try to own a space like this. Short tail, everybody in your area wants to own it. Then it converted to, why is my Toyota, right? People got more advanced. We went from an era where consumers were also becoming more literate on how to use the internet, and so they changed their search behavior. But with these new AI systems, we're getting into what's called natural language query searches. Natural language, literally like how they speak to a friend, right? Not a keyword query. And there's broad ones like this that you can read up here talking about their car and giving a situation. And then there's more specific ones where people are realizing, oh, if I tell it the specific parts of my problem, it'll be even more detailed in its responses, right? And this is the area where you can really own. These are, if you imagine SEO as owning land, right? Why is it, just like when you buy real estate, if it's closer to the target, it costs more. Same with these other high-level short-tail keywords, right? That's expensive real estate nowadays because it converts and it has so much traffic. But these are new. This is new real estate, and there's no stakes in this land yet. You can own that. Now, what I'm going to show you real quick on public video is what this looks like if I'm a customer, because the important part is that we're now condensing everything into one interaction. You're going from awareness to research to decision in a single interaction. And if you haven't pulled up an AI system, or you've probably already seen it in Google at the least, this is what it looks like. You're gonna give it a question. I'll start over real quick so you can see like top level. Give it a question. It's gonna try to answer it. Whether it's right or not is not really the issue right now. They're gonna provide you an answer, right? It's gonna ask you questions, follow-ons. What should I do? What else do you need to know about so that the answer can get better and more specific, right? This is radically different from what we used to do with Google, right? And then eventually, what's gonna happen is it's gonna get you to a full search down here, go down a little farther, where it's, back a little farther, there we go, where you're actually going to see a listing, right? They're going to actually provide you information, same as Google did, but now there's not 10 million results, there's like 3 to 6, right? So you want to be there. It's very important. It's actually significantly more valuable nowadays as well. So what's actually happening though when this happens? Some of you have already done your research on this stuff, you know, and you've read, they're like, oh, they're just going to Google and they're asking Google. And today that's partially true. They definitely do that. They're going and they're making Google queries themselves. But what they're doing is through what's called a query fan out. So we take this insertion, this query, and it's going to go and look up 5 or 10 or 40 different ways that could be asked, and it's going to pull your results for those queries, right? And yeah, sure, it's going to come from Google, but guess what? It's guessing what queries should be made before it makes this fan out. And then the real deal is, are you in these queries? What I make an analogy now is, imagine this is your new map pack. If you're number 1 in all these queries versus being not available in them, or you are, halfway here and there, and you're in 3 of them, but not in the other 8 or 7, sorry, whatever it is, that is what's going to start to change your ranking. That's today. But the fact of the matter is, they're also building their own proprietary systems to not have to do this in the future. Right? So I want you to really think about that way, because that is how it is and will continue to change. They're trying to figure out new ways to process very big queries that are not so straightforward. The other thing to keep in mind is consumer psychology. So if I asked y'all, who is Google's biggest competitor? Can anybody tell me? Anybody volunteer? Who's Google's biggest competitor? Instagram, Reddit,
ChatGPT.
Maybe coming up nowadays, sure, yep.
YouTube.
YouTube is owned by Google, yeah. For a while, huh? Yeah. So give you some context. Google owned, at the time when I was there, 500 plus products, most of which you maybe never heard, but were infrastructure. They owned YouTube, Google Search, Gmail, Maps, like all the things that we use every single day all the time, right? So they had tons of stuff there. Their biggest competitor is not Instagram, but Meta as a whole, right? So part of it, you're there. Why? Because they're both advertising businesses, right? Now, I pulled up here an experience for you to look at. This is average numbers, cost per click on Facebook versus Google down below there. I should have put Facebook, Google, not browsing research, but yeah, on Facebook, the reason being, on Facebook, they're there for entertainment. They're not there to go buy a product. So you got to hit them more, and that's why it's cheaper to advertise on Facebook. When you get to Google, they are actively searching. That's literally in the name, right? So they're trying to resolve a problem, and they're researching. And so it costs more to be there. Now, there's not really ads in chat yet. ChatGPT is testing, for sure, but it's not well rolled out yet. We don't know what they're going to charge. But the difference is now, they've searched. They've done everything. They got an answer in their head, and when they land on your page now, they're ready to convert. The psychology is so much different and more valuable. Studies are finding that the conversion rate is 9x better. Now, I've seen studies anywhere from 5 to 20x better, but I'll pull up a 9x just to put it there in the middle, kind of. And that is, I guarantee, just a consumer psychology thing in the way these systems work. Just for you to kind of think about that. Okay? Now next, I'm going to bring up a case study. Okay? This is work we actually did with a customer to create service stories for them and how it impacted their web traffic. Okay? This is Eurotech Motors in LA. It's a big market, competitive market. And this, in 3 months, is what their web traffic did when they started doing this with us. Here I pulled their most popular landing pages. And what you can see, the blue checks are all of the pages that we helped them create. 60% of their top 25 came from our pages. That was driving 25% of their new traffic. That's since July 15, 2025 when I started. Then I started to say, well, what about in the last few months? How did that look? Because search is changing, the algorithms are changing, they're prioritizing this kind of stuff more. And what's happened is it went from 25 to 28% of their traffic, and our pages became 64% of their top 25. Well, last 28 days, 68% of their top 25 and almost 37% of their traffic. That means the number of pages in their top 25 grew by 13%, but the amount of new visitors to their website coming through the pages we made for them grew over 40%. What that says to me is that AI is a primary business target for these companies. They want to move into this future. They're changing their algorithms to source information that actually, if you do this well, is much more helpful to your customers. Right? Now, some of you may be thinking, well, if I write about how it's done stuff, they're not going to come to me. No way. You all know the tools you have in your shop they don't have at home. Anything that they could find and do through ChatGPT, they could probably already find on YouTube and do at home if they wanted to. But what % of people want to do it is the other question. Not going to lose business by telling a little bit more about how you do your work. It's not releasing the liabilities and all the insider notes and those things. It's creating content, little case studies of the jobs you do. Right? Now, next thing here too is the number of new visitors to their website, the traffic. This is quarter over quarter from Q3 25 to Q4 25 for them. At first they had a little over 2,300 visitors, 600 or so were from our pages. By Q4, that more than doubled, and the amount of traffic that was coming from our pages more than tripled. So it's been a big impact for them. And again, this tells me the algorithms want this content. Now I'm going to break this down to you too, so you can understand like volumes and how we laid this out and what kind of work we did. Here, when we first started, and we're a pretty new company, 8 months old, so this is like our first real original case study coming out here. This is pretty cutting edge stuff. 2 a month is what we were doing when we first started with them, 1 every other week. Then we turned it on to 1 a week. Then we turned it on to 2 a week, 3 a week. And then my business partner left. We were growing really fast. He was like, this is a little crazy. I need to take my piece on an island. So he went and did that. I kept pushing. But I told everybody we were working with, I said, okay, well, we don't have a person on staff now to help like manage your content for you. And with this case study here, as an early customer, I said, you know what, man, I actually want to see what happens if we don't post for a while. I think it'd be a really good part of our case study. So on October 31st, we stopped posting. And you can see the traffic went down a little bit, but it mostly held steady. That little blip there was when he switched from a Shop Genie website to a Shop Monkey website. But the big thing here is good SEO pages are a long-term investment. You're capturing real estate. That traffic should stay about the same, right? The activity on your site is what helps keep it growing more and more. But the fact of the matter is it held steady, which we're super proud of. But just so you can see kind of volumes, right? You could imagine a world where you're publishing 1 a day at some point because every new thing that comes through your door is unique. You might not feel it is, but there are details that turn out real good details out of every new ticket that's just even slightly different and asks a different question of the way it came in, right? There's also this is called AI visibility. This is the ugliest slide, I promise, but what this is, there's new analytics that's not just Google Analytics where they're actually prompting ChatGPT, Google Overviews, all these every single day, with prompts you want to be owning, right? Same as keywords you want to be owning, and then pulling that content, seeing what business names are in that response, what links are in that response, in what order, all those things. And you can see our customer here, Eurotech, is the yellow line compared to all their competitors. By doing this type of content, they're now 3 to 5 times more mentioned in AI than anybody in their market. And it's just them turning their tickets into content, telling the story of the work they do every day. It's like not magic, right? And to pull this up, also show you greater detail on what it means to search these different keywords, I want to give you another quick video, and I'm going to speed through this one front and back. But real quickly also, down below here you can see I tested all these different queries, right? Because ultimately this is their most popular page, so I pulled that one. Now, this was a drivetrain issue they ran into, and how many of you really think that a consumer is going to go to Google and say Audi drivetrain issues? They're not technical, they have no idea. What they really know is my Q5's idling rough and the all-wheel drive lights on, like what's happening, right? And that's what ChatGPT AI allow them to do now. It's like speak in a different way. If they don't know the problem, they can get closer to it by just describing it. And so this is what this looks like, okay? The first one, you're pulling up, like I said, forums, and these are content that's much more for like probably a technician, right? Someone who's trying to debug something, right? And what I want you to really notice though, I'll speed this up just a bit here, is down below, right? You can see how they respond, you can see what pops up. Now I'm pausing here real quick. You see these are key terms that you could own or you could advertise towards to get into this. This is a tool called Ahrefs. If you're not familiar, it helps you find like what and how to do SEO. It's all the professional marketers using tools like this, right? But you can see here all the keywords you could own. These are probably expensive things to buy, but it's something you could advertise to if you wanted to. Okay? Keep that in mind as we go along here. Right? Now, top result, scroll down a little bit here. It's definitely not the company we work with. Someone else. It's forums, things like that. Now, If I take it to the end, I got a little bit farther. I changed it to a query that might be more like what someone would type in. Why is my Audi idling rough? Why is my all-wheel drive light on? Where do I take it? Now pause. Look at those keywords. You know what's happening right now is these are so long, they're so long, they're so untouched right now. You literally can't even advertise to own this spot. That's what's happening right now. Google doesn't know how to quantify it. And if you go in and you try to buy it, they'll say too low volume, don't know how to buy, right? Like, it doesn't work. But guess what happens now? Once you get to keywords like that and you have natural language, now it's number one. That's where you want to be. You want to be in the bubble that pops up. You want to be in the number one ranking when people show up, because guess what? When they ask that long query, you've literally written a post that like sounds just like their question because they came into your shop, you took the notes down on what they said, and then you converted that into content and mirrored what 100 other customers are going to ask you when they come to the door. That's natural language SEO. It's a difference in the way the internet's going to work. Okay? So, one big takeaway, I don't think SEO is dying, if anybody told you that. I think SEO is expanding. You can keep what you got. It's going to be good for you. It's going to be good for a long time. This is an opportunity to build bigger, to expand your land ownership, and to really capture a market that the rest of your competitors aren't going to be looking at, maybe for a long time. You remember when people owned SEO first and how much it lifted them? This is your new opportunity, okay? So what can you do? Well, some key takeaways. We just established people are searching differently. SEO is expanding, not dying. The way you make content needs to adapt, and consumers who find you are more primed than ever before to come and buy once they get through this. And how do you do it? Natural language content at scale. This is not easy to do all the time, but if you're interested, we've also written a blog on our website on how to do this without our product. I'm happy to talk to you about it. There are alternate ways. I'm not shy about that. I'll tell you how to do it. Next, optimize to dominate the query fan-out effect. If you're just in one query fan-out, it's good. If you're in 10 of them, even better, especially if you're ranked high in those fan-outs. Really important. Make sure you're answering questions, not just writing about why they should get an oil change before their summer road trip. Right? And lastly, optimize your website for AI crawling. This is a little more technical and probably a separate talk in and of itself, but make sure you have the data in your pages so that AI can crawl it faster. Make sure that the information is structured so they can understand it. You can see down below, it's probably hard to see, but I pulled this screenshot of his website and what that looks like in code. Now you're looking at this, can you tell me where the phone number is in here, where the address is? Now imagine a robot that's effectively blind, right? Like when I was first helping build these in Silicon Valley, I was teaching it the difference between HI like hello and HI like Hawaii. They're not all general intelligence. They're robots. They don't have eyes. They just like structure. They're really good at process. So over here you have what's called JSON LD and webschema.org if you want to look that up too. This is structured data that you should be putting onto your website to help AI bots read it better and interpret and source you. Some of this is built into new platforms, some of it's not. It's all up in the air right now. It's a very new world. Those are things you should be doing. So that is the end of my presentation. I'll pause here and open it for questions. I hope it helped, and I look forward to hearing what y'all have to say.